God is so small, so weak and so helpless, there's nothing that God child can do. It's true! My God is so small, so weak and so helpless, there's nothing that God child can do. The mountains are his, the rivers are his, those stars are his handiwork too. My God is so small, so weak and so helpless, there's nothing my God will not do for you. Now you know it, why don't you sing along? My God is so small, so weak and so helpless, there's nothing the God child can do. It's true! My God is so small, so weak and so helpless, there's nothing the God child can do. The mountains are his, the rivers are his, those stars are his handiwork too. My God is so small, so weak and so helpless, there's nothing my God will not do for you.
LIVEcast, welcome to the LIVEcast, welcome to the show. LIVEcast, welcome to the LIVEcast, welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show, everybody!
Hello, Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas! We're getting festive for you all.
Yeah, getting into the spirit of it all. That's
8
right.
days, 7 sleeps. What is no? 7 days, 6 sleeps?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Probably, I don't know. Who knows? Who knows now?
Not really my thing, but or counting.
It's against my religion.
So so that was My God is so small. So that was me trying to channel kind of Colin Buchanan or something. But
why would you want to do that?
My God is so small. There is a certain brand of kids song that tends to be about bigness, though, doesn't it? There's
about bigness.
Yeah.
Like
God is
a
big,
great big
very,
God.
very big, big bow, big bow, big bow, very, very big bow. That's kind of most
Big
kids.
bow. Right, yeah.
God is just big, so bow.
Yeah, our God is a great big God. That's another one, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, and he's higher than a skyscraper.
God's love is big. God's love is great. God's love is fab, and he's my mate.
Well, that's at least that's about love. But there is a theology of glory going on.
Yeah.
In a lot of, to use the technical language of the Heidelberg Disputation of 1518, which I think was the real birth of the Reformation. So back, we've had 500 years since the Heidelberg Disputation, in which Martin Luther said there's 2 ways of doing a theology. One way is a theology of glory, which is you ascend to the big God in the sky, and the other way is the theology of the cross, that actually God stoops down to your level. And he thought the whole Reformation was basically about a battle between the theology of glory and the theology of the cross. And I think that that's at the heart of the Reformation. And I think that actually you can be on the Reformed side of things, but still have a theology of glory. And still it's about the big God constantly. And therefore, as we'll see later, Christmas just kind of lands like an asteroid and people don't know what to do with it. Even good Reformed Protestant people.
Good Bible-believing Christians.
Good Bible-believing people. They don't know what to do about Christmas because it's about the little Lord Jesus.
Right.
Can we handle the little Lord? Right, and so so that song is just an attempt to subvert a few theologies of glory and talk about my God is so small. He became small, became weak and helpless for us. So, yeah, if you want to use that this Christmas, I just changed 2 words really. So
I'd push for Christmas number 1.
Christmas
if
number
anything,
1. Everyone seems to be doing
it ready.
That.
You know,
Yeah.
Is there anything going for Christmas number 1 this year?
I was sent someone we built this city on sausage rolls.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah. See, I'd be happy for that.
Yeah,
that could go to number 1.
It reminded me what a terrific song We Built This City on Rock and Roll was like,
and how much I like sausage rolls.
Really? So, I know they're a bit carb heavy.
Some places have a 24-hour Greggs.
Really?
Yeah, I think up north.
The demand at 3 in the morning.
Yeah. Well, totally. You know, if people are being on a night out,
right?
You think, well, I'll go for a sausage roll.
Why not?
Yeah. Or Ginster's pasty.
Yeah.
You know,
Ginsters, not Ginsters.
Oh, I don't know.
So you backpedal there.
Neither do I care.
Yeah. I care not. If you're wondering what we're talking about today, so are we.
Boom! Look at that. Like, not even
Jinx.
planned.
And we're talking about how to take over the world. How do you take over the world? And the answer is not the way that you think. not the way that other cultures or empires have tried to take over the world.
Right.
And that Christmas is the key to unlock how you overtake the world.
Ah.
There we go.
Okay.
That's what we're going to talk about.
Great.
And
good.
we'll develop that theme as we go. Have we introduced ourselves? I'm Glen. Hi. Hi.
Hi, I'm Paul.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm saying that to you. Like...
I know. That elf costume has not thrown me off the scent.
I thought it was Prince Charles.
It was, oh, how dare you? Obviously an Irish kind of Prince Charles with a pig under your arm. Bagara, Bagara. So you just offended one member of the royal family. I just offended an entire nation.
There you go. Well,
so, sorry. I'm married to one. Some of my best friends are
royal
Irish.
family.
Yes. I wish.
It's all coming out.
I wish. So, yeah, how do you take over the world? And the first thing we're going to think about in terms of how you take over the world is how the Christian gospel spreads. And we released last night a video called Old Story, New Media. And that was a talk that I gave at the National Club. That's, a bunch of Christians together thinking about how Christianity and culture kind of goes together. And I was talking in particular about the new media and those sorts of things. And I thought just playing a clip for you of that will help us to get into this discussion of how it is that the Christian message takes over the world. Let's have a look.
Okay. Oh, everything's moved on here. Here we go.
Here we go. A few years ago, on about the 23rd of December, I wrote a little poem called The Anti-Santy Ranty, and it was just for a carol service, and then a friend said, why don't we film that? And so we filmed it on the 24th, we uploaded it on the same day, and by the 25th we had 20,000 views, and we thought, well, that's interesting. And it sort of started me thinking about online ministry. As Glen has said, you know, when you look at YouTube, there are 1.8 billion unique monthly users. 1.8 billion unique monthly users on YouTube. 2.3 billion monthly unique users on Facebook. Those are definitely the biggest countries on planet Earth. And you think, well, who are the missionaries? Maybe we need some good gospel content on these platforms so that Christians don't have to continue to share sneezing panda videos and cat videos and all of that. Maybe there's good news to share on these platforms. And we've just increasingly found that we're getting traction as we think creatively about the gospel and about how to present the gospel online. We've seen that actually the gospel starts to get shared in a way that's kind of analogous to social media. The way social media spreads and the way the gospel spreads is kind of the same, actually. It's the same dynamic because in social media, what you like, you share. It's very simple. It's very, very simple. You like something and you share it. And if enough people like it and share it, it goes viral. And kind of that's the mission of the church as well. I hope that's the mission of the church. I hope the mission of the church is not just the sharing part of things, because we must. I hope the mission of the church is the liking of the good news, seeing the goodness of it, and then from the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaking. That would be a healthy gospel dynamic in mission. But I think there's a great opportunity in social media for there to be that healthy dynamic that as we describe the goodness of Jesus in ever richer ways from many different angles, that really my first goal is to evangelize Christians. And again, this is how social media works. The way that social media works is not that you kind of beam your messages into the ether to some random strangers over there. You beam your message to your network, to your friends, to your followers, to those who have something in common with you. And the way that it gets passed on is not with this sort of broad scattershot thing, but actually it goes viral in the way that diseases go viral, right? How do you get a viral disease? Well, if you spend enough time with the person with the illness, perhaps you'll catch it. And then if you spend enough time with another group of people, perhaps you'll spread it. And it should work the same with the gospel. It should work the same with social media. But it gives you a very distinct strategy. I think my number one strategy for reaching out is not to try to reach the internet. Really, mission happens through God's people, as God's people take the gospel out. And so I think mission online happens as we produce media that Christians like. That would be handy, wouldn't it? Media that Christians actually like. And so, yeah, so how it works online is what you like, you share. And I think that's how the gospel is spread.
Pretty
What you
much.
like, you share. And I think it's kind of the life of God as well. So from the fullness of God's loving triune life, God shares, right?
The overflow.
From the overflow.
Yeah, like the fountain.
Like the fountain. So yeah, from fullness we pour out, because this was God's life. From the fullness of Father, Son, and Spirit united in love, they said, this thing's too good to keep to ourselves, let's share. And so there is a pouring out from fullness. And then we, as Christians, we've kind of received the fullness of God poured out to us in Jesus. And now we address the world, and from fullness, from a place of love, we now flow out to the world.
Yep.
So that, to me, is how you take over the world, right? How you take over the world, if you're into that kind of thing. And to be honest, who isn't, really? Aren't we all? Trying to take over the world. Yeah. The way to do it is from fullness to pour yourself out, which is the absolute opposite of the way, like, naturally human beings try to take over the world. From emptiness,
Yeah, start
we
with
try
nothing.
to take,
Yeah.
you know,
Build up from there.
which is like, you know, if it's the tragic way of living. You know, I keep talking about, you know, the comedy. I'm doing the fingers again, children. I'm doing
Those listening at
For
home.
those listening at home, I'm drawing the U-shape. Here's the smiley face. The comedy goes down into the pit, but from fullness pours itself out, in order that the one in the pit might be swept up into something great. The tragic way of life is from emptiness. You try to grab and scratch and climb and take and get, and that's the tragic way of life. And it's also the tragic way of trying to take over the world. From emptiness, you try to take stuff.
Yep.
And so one common theme with today's livecast really is that our mission to the world is from a place of fullness where we understand the love of God, then we want to share with the world. So my way of doing mission, and I think, yeah, the way modeled to us by Jesus himself, is not to be needy, greedy. Oh, the pews are empty. Let's get out into the culture and try to gain converts. It's actually from a place of fullness we try to offer Christ. And I think those two kinds of strategies are at play when you look at Christian missionaries. And, you know, one way of doing Christian mission would be to look out into the culture as a nervous, empty church and to think, what's popular? I know, Baby Shark, that's popular, right? So let's do...
We would never get on board with that kind
Baby,
of thing,
God do 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 do, baby, God do 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 do. You know, that would work. You know,
Don't
maybe,
give people ideas.
maybe that's the right thing to do. Maybe that is the right thing to do. Or
No,
you know,
it's not.
It's not.
Let's be honest, it's really not. So,
Or you look out into the world and you think, oh gosh, I'm empty. You know, I'm a Christian. The church is empty. We need to go out and what's popular out in the world? I know, Fortnite. So how do I go from flossing to...
what are you flossing?
You don't know about flossing?
Yeah, I do
You
know.
go, you know
Yeah,
about-
but I was wondering
come
what you were doing.
I can floss. I'll show you. That's how Ruby does it. She loves flossing. She just does that. Like that.
And there's the gift.
So yeah. How do you get from Fortnite to the gospel? Yeah, from emptiness or you know, I don't know what else is popular. Kanye West.
I've no idea what's possible.
Thug life. That's the desperation of trying to jump on the thug life bandwagon.
So,
Can you imagine?
Tell you about the worst example I saw of think about the Baby Shark type example of someone taking a song was when I was at Coventry Cathedral.
Oh, yeah.
And I was sitting there before the service and the band were like warming up and I was thinking, I really know this song. I recognise the tune, you know, the guitar part, whatever. And it got to the chorus and this guy just started belting out, Lord, my heart is on fire. And I was like, no. This is wrong in every way. Every way. Just, why would you do this? Just. Yeah. So there's a line you've got to draw somewhere, I feel. And I feel songs that talk about your sex being on fire. Probably, I mean, that line was probably quite far back from there initially. Yeah. So it should have been drawn earlier than that.
The line was several miles back, but oh my goodness. Was it My Heart Is on Fire? Your Love Is on Fire?
My Heart Is on Fire.
My heart is on fire. Wow. Wow. Well, that's one for the rotation at church.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
My goodness. Or here's another popular thing. What about fidget spinners? Fidget spinners, they're popular. Kids love fidget spinners. So we're empty. We're looking at what's in the culture. Quick.
What could we get from a fidget spinner?
Let's try to take the culture, right? And so you might end up with a video something like this.
So here, this is kind of hard to ignore that, here we have 3 points, which is the Holy Trinity, okay? So Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And then, my first thought was that this centerpiece here represents the Holy Mother, the Blessed Virgin Mary.
Obviously.
And so why does this matter? Why, how could you possibly conclude something like from a toy?
So, why do we do this? Why do we do this? It's just, yeah. But you see what I mean? It's like the desperation of we're empty. What's popular? Let's grab it. Fidget spinners.
Fidget spinners. I can't even say it now.
Fidget spinners.
I'm so dumbfounded by what we've seen on that video.
Yeah. So maybe that's not the way to take over the world.
No, probably not.
Or what is the most popular YouTube video of all time?
Of all time? Is it possibly this?
Opa Jesus style. Jesus style. 2012 is ending and I still have nothing. No job, no car, no house, no iPhone, no girlfriend, no saving. Now I've no peace, I borrow money, the alarm's coming. Oh no, what should I do right now? Should I run away? Or hide in kampung and makan Maggi mee every day? Or buy the 40 and hope to kena big so I can pay? No matter whoever, whatever comes to try and help and say things are not okay. This is so wrong, I've gotta play now. Jesus Christ, hey, come into my life. Hey, he's my savior, I'll follow him now. Jesus Christ, hey, he's the truth and life. Hey, he has made a way so I can be set free. Opa Jesus style.
No.
No. Keep going.
No. I've got no. Oh, flippin' heck. Like,
Opnam Jesus style.
Thing is, see a while ago, like, remember when we went to the Jerusalem Awards, and someone said to me, like, oh, thank you so much for like the stuff you're doing, like really like pioneering stuff. And I was like, is it? I was like, really? And then I realised that kind of content,
right?
That the content
that's what we're up
out there
against.
looks a bit like that,
Whereas we are classy people.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is a high caliber, high quality production, without a doubt. But
yeah. But it was quite fun. I mean, that's quite fun. I don't begrudge.
Yeah,
people
no, that's all serious. And I've seen other ones like I'm bringing Serving back, instead of Justin Timberlake, Sexy back.
Okay.
And of course we
your serving's on fire.
Yeah. And we all love a bit of Baby's Got Book. We've used that before, don't we?
Baby's Got
so
Book.
So we like that
That's
stuff.
That's true.
It's all right if it's got his tongue in its cheek, basically.
Right.
We're cool with it.
Right.
If we think, if you went to church and they said, well, we're going to sing Oppen Jesus style right now, just because for the kids, I think. Yeah. Might raise an eyebrow or two.
So one of the things I said last night, in last night's video, was that it should be from the fullness that we overflow into the culture, and that technically and historically has been how the church has reached out. That, like, there's that tweet that I always refer to. Someone said, "I've just been to the National Gallery. Let me summarize the history of Western art. It's 1,000 years of crucifixes, then stripes." You know, and it's just this idea that, you know, you've got 1,000 years of religious art, and it is just, hey, like, if you go through the National Gallery, that's a pretty, you know, it's a pretty good summary, actually. If you're going to summarize in 7 words, it's 1,000 years of crucifixes, then stripes. But you've just got religious art telling the old story in beautiful ways, and then you depart from that old story, and you get a little bit of impressionist, and then, you know, it's like Jackson Pollock just throwing paint against the wall and going, "Look, Mom, look what I did." And it is, but, you know, that's the way that Christianity has actually affected the culture. It has gone back to the source and told its own story. You know, that Christians have been assured of the goodness of the good news, and therefore just gone out into the world and not tried to do what the world was doing, but actually tried to tell its own story on its own terms in beautiful ways. And that's the kind of that's the flow, you know, from fullness we pour ourselves out. And therefore, you know, how should Christians take over the world, right? As those who pour themselves out, right? Not in the selfish way. And how should cultural engagement run? Well, it's about telling the good news of the Christian story in its unparalleled goodness. Because the world's just got nothing on what we've got. You know, you just cannot improve on the Christmas story, right? So, one thing that kind of got me thinking about that was, should we talk a little bit about Tylene Polly?
Sure.
Last year. This time last year, I had a debate. It was a friendly discussion. Obviously, Justin Briley found it was far too friendly, and so he wanted to step in and play a bit of thug life for himself. But I was just too nice. There's an atheist singer called Tylene Polly, and she wanted to do some atheist Christmas carols, and so she took the words of normal Christmas carols and got rid of the Jesus thing.
Yep.
And what did she insert in its place? It wasn't really clear. And so I thought that was a really interesting example of how another worldview is trying to reach the world. They see something that's out there, and they replace the Christian story, and they try to insert something else. And what do they end up with in its place? Well, let's have a look at the video and see.
Oh, rest ye merry gentlemen, let nothing you dismay. For centuries we celebrate every year on this day, to keep our spirits merry.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. People have always sort of celebrated, huddled together in the darkness and waited for the days to lengthen, waited for the light to triumph over the darkness and that sort of thing. But I guess I'd just look at the tidings of comfort and joy and just ask, so tidings means news. So what is the news that's going to make me happy in the midst of the darkness? What news is giving me comfort and joy as
just
I'm in
a
the dark?
celebration of, you know, look, we've all come together. It's that time of year.
Yeah.
Let's, you know, drink and eat and enjoy each other's company. And like how I end the last verse about, you know, being good to each other as well.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a time of year when you know, we have these celebrations. It makes us happy. It makes us merry. But I think actually if we didn't have that, particularly in this part of the world, you know, where it's a bit cold and wet and damp, and we might not be particularly nice to each other
Right.
without the festive spirit
Right.
in place.
And I guess I'd say I think the festive spirit comes from a particular news item, and the news item being that the light has shone in the midst of the darkness. And, you know, remember Christ our Saviour was born upon this day to save
Right.
us all from Satan's power, lest we were gone astray. So that actually there is an otherworldly light that has dawned in the midst of the darkness, and therefore, there's comfort, there's joy, there's something to cling on to.
Yeah.
And I just wonder whether celebrating celebration is sustainable.
Right.
If you know what I mean? I want to celebrate something that elicits that celebratory kind of response from me. Or I want to sing about something that, because of its aesthetic appeal, because of its just joy-giving nature in and of itself, it calls forth the song, it calls forth the joy.
Right.
I guess the question for you there, Tyleen, is as an atheist, where does the meaning of the celebration come from? For a Christian, obviously, like Glen, it's very clear that the thing he's celebrating, the thing that we can be joyful about at Christmas, is Jesus Christ, God with us, and all of the rest of that. Whereas for an atheist, what is the... I guess it's for me, if and I don't mean to be critical here, but when I look at your songs, they feel Christmassy and they sound Christmassy, but it's a bit like wrapping, like taking all the wrapping paper off a Christmas present, and inside you find, there's nothing actually there.
Gas pedal, gas pedal, gas pedal, gas pedal, gas.
I don't mean to be critical here.
Justin drops the J-bomb right at the end there. Like, basically, I find your work to be empty.
You know, like 11 years of cultivating the nice guy image on Unbelievable. I think I drove him to it. I think I was too nice. And he just
you
realized.
could see him kind of brewing it a little bit earlier on in the video. But the thing it reminds me of, though, like, I mean, the good point that comes out near the beginning is, you know, what are the tidings she's talking about? Right. And actually what that reminded me of was that video with Stephen Fry. You know, all her songs they're gonna sound quite nice and warm and fuzzy. Let's think about, you know, Christmas and being together and stuff like. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of people who would say coming together with your family is not their idea of joy and happiness.
We get onto
anyway.
that later on in that podcast.
You know, so I'm sure there's some people who disagree. But it sounds warm and fuzzy. But like, what is the reality of what she's saying? And it reminded me of that Stephen Fry video where they're asking him about, you know, how he faces his depression. And we brought this up a number of times.
Yes.
And he says he keeps telling himself, you know, well, the sun will come up tomorrow, you know, and there's this idea, it's going to get better. And you're like, you look at that and you go, yeah, but Stephen, you've got no real basis for that. It might be that you never come out of this slump.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And in an atheistic worldview,
there's
there's no real reason to expect that you will. Whereas at least for the Christian, you've got something to look to, you know, an eternal perspective.
Totally.
And it's like that with these Christmas, you know, so there's this kind of nice fuzziness about the sun will come up tomorrow, but it's kind of an empty thing, just like those carols are ultimately empty.
Right.
You know, apart from what's on the surface there.
Yeah. "O rest ye merry gentlemen, let nothing you dismay. For centuries we celebrate every year on this day. To keep our spirits merry we feast, sing, dance and play. O tidings of comfort and joy, tidings of comfort and joy." And like, it's just celebrating celebration. And there are no tidings. And and this is the thing, you know, you get rid of the 1,000 years of crucifixes and you end up with stripes. You get rid of the story of the actual Christ child, and all you're left with is "It's always winter and never Christmas," which is, you know, C.S. Lewis's description of Narnia in its fallen state. And what I found really interesting is one of Tyleen Polly's reworkings of the old-time carols was "We Three Kings." And at one point in her reworking of "We Three Kings," she says, "We are lost in the snow. Which way is home we do not know. Find our tracks and we'll find our way back, following our footprints." Which is just really interesting, because obviously, you know, what do you follow in "We Three Kings"? You follow the star, right? Yep. You are oriented to something that's outside this world. You're looking up. You know, this is the Three Kings follow the star to find home. And here we are, lost in the snow, and all we can do is follow our footprints. Yep. And if all I've got to do is follow my footprints, I'm in trouble. And these are the tidings of the naturalistic worldview, and it just it doesn't make me want to say ho ho ho. That's for sure.
No, and I mean, you talk in the I think you mentioned it on the video that the tidings call forth the song.
Right.
Is that what you said? Something along those lines.
Yeah. Right.
And so, whereas they're having to find something, they're like, let's do a song.
Right.
Now let's find something to sing about.
Right.
Whereas for the Christian, it's the other way around. It's like we have something that makes us sing.
Right. Exactly.
Whereas you're just trying to fill it in. I mean, you were saying before, you know, just replacing it, taking the kind of God out, replacing it with something else. I mean, welcome to secular humanism and, you know, let's just take God out and good
Right.
in the in the place.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
just a similar thing, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
Like,
It doesn't last long, and because it's from emptiness that they're trying to get something. And so, I talked about, there's another worldly light that has dawned in the midst of the darkness in that video, and foolishly, I then looked down into the comment section, and do we have a screenshot of the?
yep. Here's the comment. There it is.
There is no otherworldly light that has dawned in the midst of the darkness. You made that up. If you have some evidence, please report the spectrum. Exactly what frequencies of light were violated? How can light be different than predicted by Maxwell's equations? You do know Maxwell's equations, don't you? No? Well, how about learning some basic science? Before you reveal your utter ignorance is how it went on.
Okay, yep.
So, so that was just a reminder to me. Never read
Never
YouTube
read the
comments.
YouTube comments
Just
because
don't do
it ends up a bit like.
Yeah. YouTube. Ow. 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 That hurts. Ow. Oh.
I don't think there's ever been a more accurate representation of,
It totally is.
of what it's like reading YouTube comments.
It totally is. But we joke because we do love all your comments on YouTube and want to engage with them. And we've seen, people actually drawn in and engaged with the content through comments and coming to our channel and discovering more and becoming Christians. So, I guess there is a redemption.
Even for YouTube
of
comments,
the fallen state of YouTube comments. But I think, so it's that sense of we have a culture that wants to get rid of the Christ child and hang on to Christmas. And, it's J. John's old joke, what happens when you take Christ out of Christmas? All you're left with is M&S, right?
Mm.
And it's Marks and Spencer's for those who aren't in the United Kingdom, a purveyor of fine goods. And so, that was brought home to me just on Sunday night. I was preaching at a carol service at Emmanuel Hastings and preached on Isaiah chapter 9, which again is about, those walking through the valley of deep darkness, the light has dawned.
Seen a great light, yep.
And I preached it, and it seemed to go well in the room. But a guy came up to me like straight afterwards, and the first two sentences out of his mouth were very effusive, and said, "I don't know what you call that. There's a preach, a sermon, whatever, homily, but loved it, absolutely loved it. What do you think of gay sex?" And it was one of those. Like, there have been a few moments in my life that have been like that, which have been as abrupt as that.
Just a curveball, just out of nowhere.
Like, really loved that whole Christmas. What about gay sex? What about it? And I was like, and my first response was just, oh, look, sexual ethics are just like completely like on the periphery of what Christians believe. Ethics is not even central to the Christian story. It's actually a Christian story of love showing up in the. And he just cut me off and said, "Oh, I know what you think then." And so he had a deep problem, and then instantly, like before I was even able to say anything on the issue, he was like, "And what about transgender?" And I was like, "Well, I've got all the sympathy in the world for this issue of gender dysphoria, and it's a really difficult issue. Do you know how we should best deal with those with gender dysphoria?" And then he cut me off and was like, "And what about abortion?" And off we went on that topic, and all these sort of hot topics he just wanted to raise, and eventually we sort of got the conversation back to, "Oh, but hang on, what do you actually believe?" And he said, "Well, I think there is an energy that's beyond this world." And I was like, "Is it a personal energy? Does this energy love you?" And ultimately he was like, No. And then I was able to say, "Well, look, actually, with Christmas, you've got the good news of a baby that shows up, and there's a trade-off. When the Christmas child shows up, there is a trade-off, and this isn't exactly what I said to him, but it's what I've been reflecting on since Sunday. The trade-off is this. With the Christmas child, love shows up in person, which is wonderful, because it means there's not just an energy out there that vibrates, that there's actually personal love that has a face. and you can get to know this God, and this God can get to know you. So that's bonus number one. And bonus number two is this God actually wants to intervene in this world and actually wants to show up and do something in the valley of the shadow of death and transform it into feasting joy. So he shows up, which means he loves you, and he shows up, which means he wants to set the world to rights. Brilliant. The trade-off is, okay, the God who is out there is not just an energy vibrating, but there is a person called Christ who has some opinions on stuff, and therefore our cultural moment, our cultural nanosecond in cosmic time, is not the ultimate arbiter of what's right and wrong.
Yep.
And therefore, maybe our cultural moment has got one or two things wrong. Maybe about sex, maybe about human life, maybe about lots of stuff. Maybe we've got one or two things wrong. And if there is a Christ child, if there is someone who comes into our time and space, I guess that's going to bump up against what we've always thought. And are we willing to make that trade? Are we willing to say, okay, our little tiny cultural moment is not transcendently correct? But the win is, you've actually got a God who loves you personally, and you've got a future that goes beyond the valley of the shadow. Are we willing to make that trade-off? And what I find so interesting as I reflect on this is that we as a culture have said, no, we absolutely don't want to be contradicted. We absolutely want to absolutize our moment in time and space. And what our culture thinks about sex and human life and everything else, that is ultimate. And we want to make that trade, and we want to say, no to the Christ child coming in and having opinions of his own.
He's on the wrong side of history.
He's on the wrong side of history, and he certainly was on that cross, wasn't he? He was crucified under Pontius Pilate. But then he is at the right hand of the Father. But that's the trade-off I think our culture has made. I think with such a desire to be right about sex and all sorts of other things, we will keep Christ out. But to that degree, we then keep meaning out, we keep life and love out, we keep hope out. And that's, and therefore you end up singing along with Tylene Polly, "We're Lost in the Snow," following her footprints.
Yep. And then, ironically, she does immediately then sing "Star of Wonder."
Oh, yeah.
Guide us to our home tonight, so,
Yeah, who is this star?
It's a bit of a mixed bag, isn't it?
It is.
Footprints, is it stars?
Right. But it's that whole trade-off, and I think Christmas brings it to a sharp point. Like, wouldn't it be amazing if God showed up with a face, that love with skin on was here to be personally known, that God is not just an energy, or there's not just, dead rubble out there in the universe, but that there's a personal God of love who's shown up in time and space to set this world to rights. That's the positive.
Yep.
Here's the trade-off. This God has opinions about stuff that probably won't be yours at every point. Can you handle that? It just reminds me, I spoke to a student once, and I was just enthusing about, wouldn't it be amazing if God showed up on planet Earth and you could get to know him? And she just said, that would be really inconvenient. I said, what do you mean by inconvenient? She said, well, I just want to live my life the way I want to live my life. I don't want God to get in the way. And she was just being honest, right?
Yeah.
That's the trade-off. But that's the trade-off with all loving relationships. If you want to have a loving relationship, prepare to be contradicted.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you don't want to be contradicted, then you don't want a relationship, So, so that's sort of one way I'm making sense of Sunday night. It was just extraordinary, sort of preaching about Christmas. And he did seem to be genuinely moved and interested in the talk. But just like, what do you think of gay sex? Just right there.
Just a huge thing things there to kind of try and tear down, I guess.
Yes, yeah. Roger Marshall has just commented. He says, "How disruptive was the birth of Christ for Herod?" Yeah. He flew into a rage because this was not part of his narrative.
Yeah.
He's the king, and that Herod's like us, right?
Yeah.
He's the king of his little kingdom. And Christ is a threat to that. And so he will do whatever it takes to eliminate Christ.
At least like you say with that woman, at least she's honest. Because there are many people who, will put up all kinds of, intellectual kind of arguments against belief. But often, when you burrow down a bit more, you realise it comes down to it. Well, I don't want to do this because it will mean I have to change.
Yes.
And
yes,
that's what it comes to. I mean, it's like the classic. I mean, I love because we haven't mentioned him yet. Jordan, Saint Jordan.
Peace be upon him.
In his GQ, is it GQ magazine?
Yeah, okay.
That interview there. I mean, just
yeah.
my favourite moment is when he says to the lady interviewing him, you know, do you have privilege that you've got that is unearned? And she said yes. And he said, well, why don't you give that up? You know, so you're complaining that other people have got this privilege. Why don't you give it up? And she said, well, I don't want to, and I won't.
Yeah,
and I was like,
right.
That's just a brilliant example of like just the self-righteousness of the human heart, isn't it? Like, well, I think everybody else should give up their unearned privileges because it's not right, but I don't want to give up mine, so I'm not going to.
Yeah, yeah.
Bang on, you know.
And it's the tragic way of life. From emptiness, we're grasping, and that's what life is. I'm not going to give up my privileges. No. Right. So, what is the Christian story? It's the theology of the cross. It's from fullness you pour yourself out. You know, which just goes to show, you know, how absolutely radical and revolutionary the theology of the cross is, and we'll kind of get to that. On the subject of people changing Christmas carol words. Very interestingly, the Australian Religious Response to Climate Change is a group in Australia, and they've got lots of people around Australia to go into public places and start singing Christmas carols, but again, with Christ taken out of things and an environmentalist message put in. So, for instance, we wish you a coal-free future, we wish you a coal-free future, really hard to sing, we wish you a coal-free future. So let's start this year. Good tidings we bring with solar and wind. We wish you a coal-free future. Our future we fear. Isn't that interesting? Our future we fear. So, like, good tidings we bring. Again, they've got okay, good tidings. Tell me the good news.
Yeah.
Our future we fear.
We're stuffed.
You're like, that's fine. Like, repurpose things. Christians are always repurposing other, you know, aspects of culture. You can repurpose that. That's fine. But at least make it scan, people. And if you're going to have tidings, make sure that they are at least comparable to the good tidings of the Christian message. The good tidings of the Christian message are that little baby born in the middle of history has come into the deepest part of the valley of the shadow of death to transform it into a mountaintop of joy. If you've got a story like that, then sing away. But you know, if you want to take that old story and just say, "Our future we fear." Merry Winterval, everybody. There's another one. The Joy to the World has been repurposed as "Cool Down the World." Should we sing a few?
We said we'd give it a go, didn't we?
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, because actually they've got this competition. Like you can send in a clip of you singing this, and they might upload it to their channel. So
what do you mean? Is it when you say there's a competition? Do we win anything?
Fame, adulation, just yeah.
Been there, Glen.
To be known among the Australian Religious Response to Climate Change circles is reward enough.
Excellent.
Okay.
Well, I'm game.
There you go.
What key?
Mamma mi mamu.
Inside the lips.
Okay. Unique New York. Okay. Cool down the world, the time has come for targets tight and fair. Let petrol, oil, and coal.
It doesn't scan. Prepare
to go. Oh no! Let's fund renewables. Let's fund renewables. Let's fund renewables. Cool down the world. The time has come for nature to rebound. The fields and floods, rocks, hills and plains, repeat the sounding joy, repeat the sounding joy, repeat the sounding joy. Cool down the world, the time has come to make the nations prove their minds where their mouths are. They'll pay to preserve the wonders of this earth, the wonders of this earth, the wonders of this earth. Wow. Number one. Christmas number
one. The
one.
album will be available. Speak Live sings your favourite Christmas carols.
Look for it on iTunes.
The perfect gift for anyone you know.
Cool down the world.
Who is in a deeply bad place. So
you know. It's fine. It's fine to have an environmental message. I mean, how much more could God prove that he really has a plan for planet Earth and wants us to steward it and rule the world with truth and grace than Christmas, right?
Yep, sure.
But it's like he rules the world with truth and grace is the verse from Joy to the World. And therefore our future is not to be feared. Yes, we are to steward this creation wisely. But, you know, if you're going to tell tidings, let's tell some good tidings.
I've just seen the next one.
Yes.
Away in the Arctic.
The glaciers melt, the ice turns to water, the warming is felt. We wish you a steady climate. We just want ambitious targets. We just want ambitious targets. And on and on it goes. So, you know, that's fine. That's fine. People can do that. But look, it's not just other sections of the church that are wanting to change Christmas and to kind of twist the Christmas message into something else. I think even our own tribe do it. And I've put in the comments a link to a post that I kind of push out there every Christmas about how to preach at Christmas, because I think even within Reformed and evangelical circles, we tend to pass over Christmas and we don't really know what to do with it, because maybe do we have a theology of glory?
Right.
Do we have a theology that God is big and that we cannot therefore handle the little Lord Jesus?
Well, I think that's absolutely true. And my biggest gripe for years was that every time I went to a Christmas talk, it was almost, you know, you couldn't separate it from an Easter talk in many ways. You know, it's the classic, I think you mentioned it in your thing, get beyond the manger. You know,
Right.
Remember he grew up.
Yes, he grew up.
Which I remember, and I'm never going to forget that, because once in the YouTube comments someone said, he grew up.
Yes.
Remember?
Yes.
After Meet the Nativity.
Yes.
He grew up and he became a carpenter.
Yes.
Because
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
obviously the important point.
Because he was a bloke. I honestly think that was his point. He grew up, he became a bloke, he swung a hammer.
Yeah, and then he called us idiots who knew nothing of Christ.
Yeah,
But
he did.
That was less nice.
Yeah. Less Christ-like, but yeah.
But yeah, I mean the classic is you go in and it'd be preaching the cross, and the kind of I've heard people say, but Paul says, you know, we preach Christ crucified, and you're like, yeah, but that doesn't mean you never speak of anything else. Like, and by saying we preach Christ crucified, that doesn't mean when someone preaches the resurrection, oh hello, like that's not what we signed up for.
Yeah.
You know, you're drawing a bit of a false dichotomy between these areas there.
Yeah. Whereas I think because I have 1 Corinthians 1 totally in mind when I preach the manger, right? Because he says, I determined to know nothing except Christ and him crucified. Because that whole chapter, 1 Corinthians 1, is about a theology of the cross, as opposed to a theology of glory, where he's like, you know, the Greeks, they're into their power and their wisdom, but we preach the Christ who made himself small. Yeah. Right? And that's my motivation.
Philippians 2 type stuff as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
God
exactly.
comes down, humbles himself, you know, taking the form of a slave. And
right.
It's that, isn't it?
It's the comedy, people. It's down into the valley, and the manger is on the way down. And as Philippians 2 says, he keeps on humbling himself. So again, the comeback to the guy who says, he grew up! You morons, he grew up! You're like, no, actually, he stooped further, is literally the way the story goes. It's not that he made himself bigger after the manger. It's actually he made himself smaller, and he continued to pour himself out. From fullness, God pours himself out.
And I think that's a good message at Christmas, or it's a good message anytime, because often, you know, when people come to church at Christmas who maybe don't come to church the rest of the year round, and if you're not part of the church, you probably do have the view of God that we talk about sometimes, is that God is the big, you know, bearded guy in the sky by himself, high on power, low on personality, that kind of thing. And actually, people have this impression of God as that wants us to take away our fun and our control, and just, you know, we are just to submit to God like he's this terrible ruler over us. But in the Incarnation, we have the God who steps down, lowers himself to be with us, joins us in our, you know, in our mess, so we can join him in his family. You know, becomes our brother. That's a very different story. And Christmas is a great opportunity to preach that. You know, it's just a great way in, isn't it?
Totally.
And that has, and I think it surprises people, because people have this view of God. It's the, you know, philosophical view of God. You know, the omni-being, isn't it? You know, we talk about. And actually, the who Jesus is just comes and shatters that completely. So
Totally.
Why wouldn't you want to do it?
Well, yeah, exactly. So I think it does diagnose a deep problem with our own tribe, and I'm talking to you, evangelicals. There is a bit of a problem, and I wonder whether it is a theology of glory that we naturally have. Yeah.
Do you wonder whether some people feel they've got to talk about the cross, because if we don't talk about the cross, then we've not done the preach properly. Like, because I would say I've certainly felt pressure to get to there.
Right.
Not really because I felt this is where it needs to naturally lead from what we're talking about here, but mostly because I felt pressure from, I know someone's going to feed back to me on this afterwards, and they'll be like, you didn't mention penal substitution, you know, like...
Right.
There's
Yeah.
that pressure there.
Well, I mean, clearly the Bible holds crib and cross together. Like, you go to Hebrews 2, and it's like he became our brother, became a faithful high priest in order to offer sacrifice for us. Like, and so I'm totally into holding crib and cross together. And I'm always saying things like the crib and the cross was cut from the same piece of wood, right? And there he is, wriggling and raw and naked and struggling for breath on the wood. Remind you of anything? Like, because I'm wanting to do this thing that the crib is revealing the God who pours himself out, and he's not done yet. He'll continue to pour himself out. Yeah. So I'm totally into holding crib and cross together in that sense, and I'm totally into preaching an atoning incarnation. Like, the reason why he becomes man is that he wants to be at one with man, right? Yeah. And that's where the word atonement comes from. It's at one-ment. So in the manger, like, you're really looking at the lengths to which he wants to go to be at one with us. He'll become one of us. Yeah. And so I definitely want to preach atonement, and I definitely want to preach the trajectory towards the cross.
And it's distinctive as well, isn't it, from other faiths? So often people, you hear the kind of classic, all faiths are just the same thing, really believe the same ideas. But of course, the idea of God becoming flesh would be abhorrent to the Muslim, unthinkable. Right.
Go and worship your flesh God. I had that, a guy at Speaker's Corner, and so this Muslim is always talking about Jesus. He just said, "You go and worship your flesh God, your flesh God," which is great at John chapter 1, isn't it? The Word became flesh. It's such a repugnant idea.
Yeah, Well,
it was repugnant to the classical mind. It is repugnant to the Muslim mind. Like, it's just nuts.
But I mean, and for me, like, one of the favourite name I have for God is Emmanuel. Right. That's the one I like the most. The God with us, and I think that is such a key thing to bring in at Christmas. Yeah. Yeah. And like you say, it's a story all through the Bible. God walks with Adam and Eve in the garden, and then it's always, all through the Old Testament, it's like, I want to make a dwelling place to be amongst my people. I will be amongst them. Right. And you've got your tabernacle and your temple which do that. And then Jesus comes, the Word becomes flesh and tabernacles amongst the people. Right. And of course, we're looking to the end where, in the new creation, and God is just there, and we're there, and
dwelling together.
Yeah. And again, that's very kind of, that is not an Islam thing as well, is it? Islam is very much, even when you go to paradise in Islam, Allah is not there. You're not with Allah. No,
not at all.
Not at all. Yeah. So
and so, like, in my article, I talk about 3 A's that tend to describe sermons on the incarnation in our kinds of churches. There's the abrupt incarnation, there's the Anselmium, and there's the apologetic. The abrupt is just like, oh, God in skin, weird, right? But stick with me, and it's just, it's not tied into the logic of the gospel or anything. It's just like, I know this is going to sound strange, but God in skin, weird. But I think when you've got the kind of theology that you've just laid out in the background, God in skin is, that's exactly what a God who wants to be at one with us. It's all total. It's not this abrupt thing. It's a consummation, right? It's
and everyone hates the far away, distant God, the omni being who rules over them. People hate that idea. Well, yeah. And so, talking of the God who becomes flesh and comes to dwell with us, you think is
the guy in Hastings shows you why we don't want the God to show up, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
and I think that is always going on.
As well.
That is, if he shows up, he might have some opinions. They might not be identical to mine. In 2018, So in our tribe we have the abrupt incarnation, or we have the Anselmium Anselmian.
So we can preach it, but we can't say it.
So Anselm wrote a book, Why Does God Become Man? Cur Deus Homo, right? Why does God become man? And essentially it was a kind of a penal substitutionary like argument. It was like, well, for God to be just and for him to justify the unjust, there needs to be a sacrifice, and therefore the sacrifice needed to be man.
Kind of a like for like type thing.
Had to be a like for like.
Yep.
So in order to redeem the product.
If you've not read the book, there you go.
You should do a YouTube video on that. Yeah, and so that's the reason for it, and there's almost this kind of transactional theology going on. Like he had to come and pay the debt, so but then you just start to wonder why doesn't God just zap the wood of the cross? Why does he have to zap? And Anselm comes back and says, well, it was man that sinned, and so he has to become man. But I don't know. It just becomes a very transactional kind of theology. Or there's the apologetic way of preaching Christmas in our churches, which is all about apologetics, where you just say, the good thing about Jesus becoming flesh is that he has left footprints on this earth, therefore we can study the New Testament documents, and they're very historical, don't you know? And you go down that route.
Yep, here's the evidence, look into it.
Which is one application of the wonder of Christmas.
Yeah, it has its place. Yeah.
But I think we can go beyond the abrupt, the Anselmian, and the apologetic, and so I suggest in my article 3 others. There's the Athanasian, the atoning, and the abasing. The Athanasian is, okay, let's be Trinitarian about this. Like, if you've got a Trinitarian theology behind you, if before you talk about 2, you've got 3, right? Thinking about 3, 2, 1, sort of my gospel presentation. 3, God is a loving union of 3. Then the Son of the Father becomes our brother when he becomes that second Adam. That's the two representatives, Adam and Christ. So the Son of the Father, the Son from that family, joins us in our human family. And then all of a sudden it starts to make sense. If God is a family of love and the Son from that family joins our dysfunctional family, you're like, okay, that works. It's not abrupt or, when you've got a Trinitarian framing, it kind of helps. And then we need to preach an atoning Christmas, this is part of God becoming at one with us so that we can become at one with him. And it's an abasing Christmas. He's pouring himself out from fullness. The little Lord Jesus is expressing just how divine he really is. Because how do you know a fountain? You see a fountain when it's poured out. And you start to see that fountain poured out at the manger. You continue to watch him pouring himself out through the Gospels. And now on the cross, really he is that fountain of life going thirsty so that we who are thirsty can drink from him. So those are 3 themes I'd love to see people take on in their preaching. The Athanasian, the atoning, and the abasing. You know what? Should we go over the hour?
Why not?
I don't know. It's our last podcast of 2018. So if you want to press pause now and save us for next week, there we go. You can do that. But I just wanted to note a couple of things in the news just in the last 24 hours that I've come across that I just thought were brilliant, and people should get a load of them. So James Cary, friend of the show, he's been on the show many times, and James is a comedy writer, writes for a lot of shows on the BBC, and he was on Radio 4 just this morning. You heard him on the radio?
Yeah, I was in the car, and
yeah, you let me know about it.
Yeah.
I was listening to Radio 2.
Yeah. So, like I say, I've hit that age. It's happened.
I wish I could say Radio 1, but it's just noise, people. It's just noise. All that bleepy boppy music. But yeah, you heard him talking about his new book. He's got a new book coming out early next year about comedy and Christianity. So should we hear some of the things he said on Radio 4 just this morning?
Yeah, here we go.
James? Okay, we don't have a tradition of finding the Bible funny, but it's interesting how funny the Bible actually is when you get into it and you read it properly. So you could argue that lots of Shakespeare's comedies aren't funny, but actually they are funny. It's just you've got to work a little bit to get into that mindset. And so Jesus is funny, and also one of the points of the book is he offended people, and actually he went out of his way to offend people.
Oh, give us an example.
Well, I mean, his stories made people incredibly angry, and all of his jokes were many of them were made at the expense of the Pharisees, who were actually very popular and deemed to be good religious people and all those kinds of things. So he continually, almost everything he says makes him furious, and even he heals people on the wrong day, and he knows that he's going to get into trouble for it, and they hate him so much that they kill him. I mean, that's a tough crowd. I mean, he knew what he was.
Tough crowd.
Yeah.
You might think it's tough at the Comedy Store on a Friday night, but yeah, you ain't been to Golgotha. That was a tough crowd. So,
Yep.
For those of you who don't know, James and I recorded a bunch of videos back at Easter, because Easter actually fell on April Fool's Day. April 1st was Easter Sunday this year, and so we did a whole bunch about how the Bible is comedic and Easter is the grand comedy. And so we'd love to show you a little clip from that, and hopefully it'll whet your appetite, and this could be something else that you watch between Christmas and New Year.
In Palm Sunday.
There's a guy on a donkey.
Which is funny.
It's funny.
Yeah. Donkeys are inherently funny.
They are. Yeah. You can make a real ass of yourself and all that.
Yeah.
So there is meant to be a king who is having his great procession, and it turns out to be a funeral procession. It's meant to be on his way to a coronation. It ends up being on his way to an assassination.
Yeah.
He's meant to be on some stallion.
Yeah.
It ends up being on a donkey or two donkeys.
Yeah.
In Matthew remembers a second donkey.
Yeah.
That was there. Which is just, that's funny.
Yeah, and also it's a young donkey.
Yes.
So his feet are sort of dragging along the ground.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty undignified.
Yeah.
Now, of course, the thing is, a theologian at this point will say, well, of course, we know exactly why Jesus is on a donkey, don't we?
Zechariah 9.
Zechariah 9.
Right.
What does Zechariah 9 say? I mean, I'm sure you've got it off the top of your head, but...
See him come gentle and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. Yeah.
So it's easy to look at the fulfillment
Right.
of Scripture and explain the weird moment.
Right.
But then it's easy to look past it and just go, they think that he's going to be their king. He's riding into victory. The crowds are all there. And here he is he on a donkey?
Yeah.
Is he on two donkeys?
Yeah.
It's not,
Yeah.
What is going on?
How do you even ride two donkeys at once?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With retaining your dignity. Answer, I don't think you can.
You don't. But, he's on his way to a cross, which will be his throne.
Yeah.
And how do you keep your dignity there?
You don't. So, yeah. And again, it's that whole from fullness pouring yourself out thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
That all these comedic moments are actually, about fullness being poured out. Or they're about the proud who puff themselves up and then pop. Or the proud person who slips on the banana peel. And down they come, and of course we all laugh. We point and laugh.
He's right, though, that it's easy to miss those things, that we don't, particularly when we're so familiar with the stories, we don't see the kind of comic aspect necessarily, or the things he mentioned there about people going, is he on a donkey? How do you ride two donkeys? That's been a source of much discussion in my house before.
Right.
How do you ride two donkeys?
Yeah.
I like to imagine it was like the people who ride the horses at the circus. Where they stand with a foot on each one, and then ride them like that. But then, or do he sit side saddle on one with his feet on a lower one?
Yeah. So look out for James Cary's book, where he will explain all of that and help you to read the Bible with new eyes and hear the Bible with ears attuned to the comedy that's already there. So The Sacred Art of Joking is coming out, and maybe we'll talk to James Cary in the new year again when that book is just about to come out. So that was one thing that caught my eye just this morning. And then another thing, last night I listened into Giles Fraser's new podcast on Unheard. Unheard is a really interesting website that is seeking to do what we spoke about last week when we said, can you imagine a newspaper in which it's not like wall to wall, not all doom and gloom, and not wall to wall politics.
Yeah,
like imagine one that took religion seriously and the arts and science and technology, and didn't think that the only things that are going on in the world are in Westminster. Unheard is kind of an attempt by Tim Montgomery and many others to do that. And Giles Fraser, the loose cannon, as He's a canon of St Paul's Cathedral, and he writes for The Guardian under the title The Loose Canon. Giles Fraser is always a stimulating thinker, and he's got this podcast interviewing some really interesting people. He had Jonathan Haidt on a couple of weeks ago, and he had Tom Holland on this week. And Tom Holland, an historian who has written a lot about Islam and the origins of Islam. He's written a lot about the Roman Empire and classical times and late antiquity. And but he's also always kind of been thinking about the cross and been thinking about Christianity from a very early age. And actually, he has some profound things to say about how absolutely countercultural Christianity has always been. You know, just landing in the ancient world like an asteroid and totally changing the culture. So I just thought we could listen to one clip and then a second one. But the first one is about how Christianity, and in particular the cross, has absolutely changed the world.
Both my mother and my godmother were very, crucial influences on me. I loved them deeply. I never had an issue with institutional religion. It was just that it kind of faded a bit, and because of the dinosaurs, I'd always had a slight problem with Adam and Eve. And I remember being in church and kind of, whenever I was kind of feeling bored and skimming through the New Testament, trying to find any references to centurions or to the Whore of Babylon, or anything that would evoke Rome, just finding Rome kind of more glamorous, really. So I was always on the side of Pontius Pilate because he was a Roman procurator. What's not to like? But of course now I realise that the crucifixion is the cross, what it represents, is the most astonishing symbol that humanity's ever really had. And the fact that it's become probably the most recognisable cultural symbol in human history is staggering, because it is an emblem of torture and death and suffering. And I think that we in the West are so desensitised to it that we've lost the sense that this was an emblem of Roman power, and the power that any governor had to impose death on those who stood up to Rome. And that power was the power to burn, to throw to the beasts, or to crucify. And what happened with the crucifixion is that people discovered that weakness could become a source of strength. And it was an epical discovery, and it changed the world. And the world that we live in that sense, is a deeply Christian one now. Even so, I don't need to tell you as a man of the cloth yourself.
Astonishing, really. Yeah. And I love that quote. He says, the cross is the most astonishing symbol humanity has ever had. This, again, because we are all naturally theologians of glory, and we are all naturally empty, trying to fill ourselves up. And the cross is about this God who pours himself out with every drop of his blood. And he, as an historian, he notes the way that this symbol and this teaching, this theology, has upended the world, and it's the most significant thing that's ever happened on planet Earth. It's quite the claim, but I think it's interesting that from a secular historian's kind of point of view, kind of seems to him to be undeniable. So that's kind of the impact that the cross has on culture and has had on our civilization, and Tom Holland would say not just on Western civilization, but through the West now. That the whole world is different because of the one who was crucified. So just a stunning thing to say. And then Giles Fraser does a good job at the end of trying to get personal with Tom Holland and ask him, what does this personally mean for you? Let's have a listen to that.
The second one, yeah?
Yeah.
To feel embarrassed or not, whether anything is going to happen.
I see.
And I suppose the state of play is that I feel the pity and the power of the Christian myth in a non-intellectual way. So you said I applied in an intellectual way. I feel it touches
emotionally,
my heart.
viscerally.
It emotionally, viscerally touches me. And there are times where I feel, this could be belief, that the flame of belief is guttering back into existence. And I feel excited. I would love that to happen. And there are times where I genuinely feel it. And then it kind of, I think about the Mesozoic or something, and it gets blown out again.
Very interesting. Yeah, the flame of faith is, spluttering back to life, perhaps, for Tom Holland, going to church, and
Was it Tom Holland? It wasn't long ago, was it, that there was a piece by him where he realised, he was saying how he'd come to realise how deeply influenced the world had been by Christianity. So he's kind of been on this journey, hasn't he? Or is seemingly still on this journey.
Yes.
So maybe near to the kingdom.
Yeah, well, so he goes to church, and he has a joke in the podcast about sort of kneeling down to pray, and Giles says, "What do you expect to find?" He says, "I don't know, I'll find out." It's sort of let's see, let's try this thing out. So very exciting, very exciting. And again, what draws all these threads together from today, as far as I'm concerned, is this idea of the cross. This idea of a theology of the cross, the theology of a God who pours himself out. It transforms the world, it transforms our stories, it transforms our hearts. And this is what we get to preach at Christmas. Even if you don't mention Golgotha, you can still preach in a way that is according to a theology of the cross, that the little Lord Jesus is the one who would pour himself out to be near to you and to draw you home. That's what Christmas is all about. So, that'll do it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, we hope you guys have a great Christmas. And, we hope that you guys know the beauty of Emmanuel, the God who is with us, the God who moved heaven to earth to be with us and will one day move heaven to earth forever to be with us. And,
it makes a song want to come out of me.
Really?
Yeah. I think we've probably got a song we could
really
we could end on.
Is it a culturally appropriate song? Is it engaging with what's popular out there in the world?
Oh, absolutely.
But in a way that's modelled by the Incarnation
Undoubtedly.
Undoubtedly.
Yeah.
Well, while you cue that up, why don't we give everybody a happy Christmas and Merry New
Christmas,
Year and all
Happy
that.
New Year. We'll leave you with this for 2018. Thank you for joining us.
Enjoy.
Goodbye.
Bye.